live once again from Northern Israel and the update about Bitcoin and alts. What is happening in the markets on this fine Wednesday, August 28th, 27th to 2025. So, right now, we've seen Bitcoin and alts had a nice little dippy dip yesterday. Overall, not of course not every coin, yeah, but the leading ones had a bit of a pullback, continuing from Monday, and then they proceeded to start to climb a little bit, uh, doing so according to the VEPs of each asset. It's not like they all move exactly in lockstep in unison, right? But they, a lot of times it appears that way, and for the very simple reason that the massive algorithms that are buying and selling, the majority of the orders on any exchange, they tend to be buying multiple assets at once. Right? In many cases, they're buying dozens, if not hundreds, or even thousands of assets at once. So that's why you tend to see, certainly among the top, hundreds or at least thousand out of the millions of cryptos that exist, you tend to see the top ones move in a kind of synchronized fashion. Now, again, it's not exactly synchronized. They're not perfectly in lockstep, but you will see that happen. And you will see also the bots playing not just with the most liquid assets, but sometimes, depending on the asset, they'll even put some positions on relatively small assets, right, that have very little liquidity, but enough that they can run small orders and go in and out. Although, to be honest, it's usually not worth the time of most, HFT traders. Like if you work at an HFT firm, normally the tiniest, the smaller assets, they're not usually worth your time, but they can be as part of a basket of alts. So they will do that, but they're usually very careful when they do that. And yes, obviously, because of the position sizes that they're able to carry, they can easily move, assets up and down very easily. Right? And you look at a lot of assets, so a lot of them have very, very little liquidity, obviously. In many cases, even less than six figures. So it's really nothing for them. I mean, that's barely a rounding error, right? For a lot of practically any HFT firms, traders, right? So, but if they choose to, some of them do, and they include them in kind of a basket of altcoins that they put together, and then they let their bots, run the trades according to, percentage returns, etc., making sure that they're taking their profits early and often, and they really do run fast trades on those things. No different than they do on the other assets, but they certainly don't hang around and wait for the alts to do crazy stuff because they're so illiquid. Like, your best bet is to just, and that's, by the way, that's why you'll see a lot of the times crazy wicks on altcoins. Like, even on low time frames, you'll just see the price go, shoot up and down, or shoot down and up, or whatever, and you see these crazy wicks even on low time frame candles, because they're just placing in, arbitrage orders on different exchanges, or even on the same exchange with two different accounts or whatever, just buying and selling at two different places, or even just running a straight trade, buying, and as soon as they see that it pumps up the price, selling it. But if they're the only one that bought and nobody else bought, then of course selling it will be a problem for them. If if there is no counterparty to take that, to buy it from them at those prices, when they choose to sell it, right? So that's why they have to be careful with that, because it's possible to lose money even if you are literally the whale, of an asset, like the biggest whale of an asset. But that's why they tend to stick to bigger assets, And that's why we tend to, for obvious reasons, right? Like that's why, yeah, you'll see some whales dipping their toes in various assets, and some traders at these kind of HFT firms or quant trading shops, they will trade the smaller liquid assets, or hardly barely liquid assets. But typically, normally, they will stick with the bigger assets. And why? Because there's more liquidity there. There's no issue of getting their profits on a fast trade. Right? There's not going to be much slippage if your average trade lasts 0.2 seconds, and there's constantly other traders trading that asset. Right? So that's the thing that makes it more reliable to trade bigger assets. That's why people with bigger positions prefer to trade assets that have more liquidity, right? Because you know that you can get in and out of your bigger positions without losing all your profits on slippage. And if you think slippage is not a problem because you have a relatively small position compared to such whales, it is. It's still a problem, even for a regular trader. Like, let's say you're a regular trader and you put, I don't know, 5, 10, 20,000, $30,000 on, even 50,000 on the line. Okay, they don't think it's a very big position, whatever. In a lot of illiquid coins, that's actually enough to move the entire coin, right? In many coins, like really a lot of coins, right? I remember even for the first few years that Hex existed, and probably even today, this coin by Richard Hart, right? He created this coin called Hex. There was a long period of time where if you even put like a couple of ETH down, I think if you put down 3 ETH, that was more than enough to move the market, right? Like it was really very tiny, right? In terms of diluted market capitalization, all that kind of stuff. So it was fairly easy to move it if you really wanted to. And there's a lot of coins, like it's just one example, So, I mean, it doesn't mean that there was no value to it. In fact, that was at the time when it was approaching its all-time highs, from what I recall. Like when it was nearly, I don't remember, it was a buck a hex or something like that. It was pretty high value. It was 50 cents, whatever it was. It was a fairly high value for hex. Now I think it's, last time I saw anyway, it was less than a penny again. So obviously it's fallen substantially. Part of the reason is because he created another chain called Pulse, and then Pulse Hex, and then I don't know, all these different, like, instead of having everything on one blockchain and one, platform and everything else, he split it up into like 5 different things, which, critics will say, well, at first he was saying it should all be together, and then he ended up splitting it all up. Isn't it just a land grab? I'm not here to discuss that in this video, but that's what critics will say and have said. Whatever. I'm of the belief that more competition is better for a marketplace, because more competition indicates a thriving, healthy marketplace that is growing and dynamic and is far from consolidated, right? Consolidated marketplaces tend to be, frankly, boring, and usually they turn into oligarchies and monopolies, not necessarily in that order, right? But when you have consolidation, you tend to get big companies buying out all the other little ones, and eventually merging with each other to the point where you basically have just, monopolies in different countries or nations, and even globally, right? To the point where there's really like no competition and no innovation anymore, and that just kills off anything about the spirit of that industry. I mean, look at computer operating system software, right? When was the last time a really innovative computer operating system came along? And if you're going to tell me Palantir, I tell you that's not even a consumer operating system. It's literally for businesses and governments. How many of you are running Palantir software, by the way, even if you run a business or you work in a government? Like, yeah, you might be running it if you work in the US government or other governments that they might be working with. For the most part, they're working with companies, very specific companies at the moment, and the US government, like parts of it, right? Even if they're doing experiments with other countries or whatever. And that's, so there's Palantir, there's Linux, and all the derivatives of Linux, Unix, and BSD, and all that stuff. They date back to Unix. Right? But basically, there's Palantir, Linux, Mac, and Windows. And I'm not going to get into splitting hairs about BSD versus Linux, whatever. It's all in the Linux category, okay? Proper open source software, okay, of one type or another. But let's be real, like, that's really all there is. Right? Palantir, who are like 0.000000001% of people who happen to work for the U.S. government and or specific companies, right? So that's not really a big innovation in terms of for people, at least not yet. Right? Yeah, it may be a big innovation for the governments or companies that work with it, but it's not a big innovation for the average person, for the industry at large, and for the zillions of companies that use software, right, to build and release products, right? It may become that, but it's still very nascent. And you could say, well, that's an innovation. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. That's why I include it. Palantir, Linux, and all of the derivatives of Unix, Mac, Windows. That's 4 types of operating systems. 4. For the billions of people who use computers, there are 4 types of operating systems. Just think about that. Billions of computer users, 4 operating systems. That's it. You want to tell me that's innovation? You want to tell me that's a good thing? I mean, be real. Right? Let's be real about it. It is not innovation. And by the way, many of those operating systems still suffer the very same issues that they've suffered for the past 30 years without getting them properly resolved. Like system bugs, crashes, etc. Design failure, stupid infinite loops that are illogical that you think should be fixed by now, especially with all the automation in code development that exists that let you fix things very quickly if you're a decent engineer, supposedly. And we still see stupid bugs and loops. Like what? Like Windows. Still the most popular operating system on the planet and a complete monopoly in many ways, shapes, and forms. Right? So again, there's like 4 types of operating systems, and you basically have one of them is a monopoly. And the other 3 are trying to be monopolies. Like, how is that good for the industry? It's not, obviously. It's the farthest thing from good for the industry. It's quite the opposite of good for the industry, right? In fact, it's bad for the industry that that 4 companies basically get to determine the fate of the software industry. It's not good for innovation. It's not good for development. It's not good for any of that. Why do I say that? Well, I mean, just look at the state of affairs with technology, right? It's kind of in a dead quagmire. If you're honest about it. I mean, it really is, right? It really is in a dead quagmire. And if you were honest about it, you would admit that to yourself and say, okay, yeah, technology is kind of in the shit right now. You would not be the biggest fan of the tech that is basically at a standstill since decades. Right? Like it might seem nice that, oh wow, we got all this stuff we can do with just 4 different types of operating systems. Yeah, but there's 8 billion people. And clearly the 4 different types of operating systems are not enough to satisfy the needs of the billions of humans who use computers. Right? Because if it was the case that it was enough, then there wouldn't be the many computer bugs that exist. Right? Think about it. Think about it. Would there be all of the different unnecessary computer bugs that exist if the 4 main systems that people use were satisfactory for the billions of people? No, because the problems would have been debugged. Right? Right. So don't pull your nonsense. It doesn't work on me. Like, yeah, software is great and all, but it still falls far, far short of where it should be and could be if it was properly developed, which it is not. All right. That's the long and short of my little rant about software and innovation and competition. But just to point out, when we had more different types of operating systems, there was frankly a lot more innovation and radical research and development happening in the software space. And you could say, well, but software is far more advanced now than it was 40 years ago. Yeah, that's true. And there's a lot more you can do with software now than you could 40 years ago. That's also true. That is definitely true. Like, I'm not denying that. But what I am saying is that despite the advances that have been made in the last 40 years, those advances have happened despite the limitations of the different types of software that are available to build on, the different types of operating systems. Think about how many more advancements would have happened or could have happened had there been more serious operating systems to build on. Now you could say, well, but with all that fractured nature, it's not possible. There's not enough standards, not enough people using it. You wouldn't have large enough data sets. Those are all valid points, unless you think more broadly and differently about how you could have built systems and tools that worked with interoperability across different systems. And in that case, well, I have to humbly disagree with you and tell you that no, I think that that's the case. I think we could have had interoperability work in favor of developers and innovators, even in a world with thousands or tens of thousands of different operating systems. Right? But we all know the reality is Not everyone's going to build an operating system, and I get it. It's kind of inevitable that there will be consolidation, but it is undeniable that the consolidation of competition, because that's what it literally is, and makes less innovation. It stifles innovation. This is very obvious. What is the number one thing that companies do as they grow? They acquire and kill other companies. Right? They buy and kill other companies. Number one thing they do. That's how they stay on top, especially, or that's how they get to the top and then stay on top. Right? They buy their competition out, and they quietly or not quietly kill off that competition. So that if there were two companies offering this one product, now there's one. Or if there were 99 products offering this product, now there's 98. And they just keep going through the list and buy off all the little ones at first. In most cases, sometimes they'll buy off if there's big obvious ones to buy off first, then they'll do that. But usually they'll just buy off the little ones. And then once they're done buying off the little ones, then that's all that's left is the big one or two. And once they're done buying them off, then there's no market left, no competition. What is this? I always find it fascinating what people do with this kind of reality. Fascinating, dear James. Fascinating. Amazing. Okay. So the same thing is true in any market, including in crypto, right? Like when we have 10 million coins or whatever number exists, it actually speaks volumes for the competition, the amount of competition that exists. And you can say, well, it's too much. They're distributing the cash available to too many different projects. Are they, though? Really? Most of these projects are tiny. And like I said, they're very illiquid, right? Most of them have like, 1 or 2 Solana or ETH worth of capital, if that, available in their liquidity pool. If you actually look at the actual liquidity, right? The vast majority of them, like they're tiny. They're, like I said, practically nothing. Yeah, some of them might have 10 or 20 or 100, units of whatever crypto as their liquidity pool, but they're still very small relative, right? They might be literally like less than one, far less than the value of one Bitcoin, right? Now you could say, well, their market cap is, millions. Yeah, that's because people have agreed to trade a tiny number, a unit of it for some ridiculous price. Sure, which makes the market cap theoretically worth a lot. But when you actually try to cash out, you'll find that the slippage will bring that right back down to, practically nothing. Like I said, this can happen even if you have a relatively small position that you're trying to trade. That's why you have to be careful. Hello there. Israeli Harari. Yes, indeed. I am Israeli. Among other things. I'm American and whatnot. And I made Aliyah many years ago. But that's not the point of this video. So yeah, it's very good overall for the market, in my opinion, to have a lot of competition. And I firmly believe that, right? And it doesn't matter if you're talking about competition in the AI space or the Web3 space or the combination of AI and Web3 or what have you, right? Whatever the sector, whatever the field, the more the competition, the better. Yeah, I mean that. Like, it's a sign of a thriving, healthy market. Whereas in the case of fields that have consolidated, what you have are signs of monopoly where there is no competition, and you get less and less innovation, less and less product development, less and less, brands offering services to consumers and to businesses. And that's why I'm a big fan of competition. Anyway, and that goes for the crypto market just as much as it does for any other market. All right, I think it's gonna do it for now. I got a bunch of things I gotta get doing now. Gotta get done. And as always, if you want to learn about trading this stuff for free, you can go do that at the Alpha Trading Discord. It's a community that my co-founders and I set up years and years ago. Come learn for free. Come get free tools, free indicators, free chart. Basically free everything. The only thing that's not free at Alpha Trading is if you want to actually pay for our pro indicators, which are like next level. First, you should learn with the free stuff. I mean, they're free. Why wouldn't you take the free stuff anyway? It's literally free. Learn with the free stuff. You can trade with it. We traded with them until we had our fancier index. That's for sure. So do that. Go learn with the free stuff. Once you learn with the free stuff, you'll see that the paid stuff is a no-brainer. It's kind of obvious. Free educational information and everything else. It's right there in the Alpha Trading Discord. And you get all that by just going to alphatradinghq.com/discord. Again, that's alphatradinghq.com/discord. Go there. Go to the request support channel. In that channel, click on the create ticket button. In that ticket, just type that you want the volatility starter pack and your TradingView username. That's the most important thing. Just type in your TradingView username. Not your login, whatever word or password or anything like that. Just your TradingView username. The one that's publicly visible. Right? Because then we can hook you up with all the indicators. And that is the point. You can get access to all of our tools that are free and all of our educational material that is free, which we give out for free because we want you to learn a better way to trade. The whole reason we created this way to trade is because we're frankly tired of seeing good traders get wrecked. So, for example, here's what the indicators look like. Right? Here. You see this panel. You have at the bottom there, you have the alpha laser returns. And in the middle there, you got the alpha volatility quality. You got two different lengths of it running there. See the nicknames within there. And then on this side, you got three instances of the AVP and the ATPC. Why do we run three different instances? Well, come and learn and you'll find out. But the point is, you get this chart for free when you sign up to the Volatility Starter Pack for free at alphatradinghq.com/discord. Yeah, that's going to do it for now. So we'll see you in the trading pit, so to speak, in the live stream if you want over in that Discord as well. We do live streams 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. They start at 9 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. You can join in, you can listen in, you can observe and listen in. You can also participate. Like you can ask questions in the chat by typing them, or even by voice. Like we grant you the power of your voice in our actual live streams, unlike pretty much any other crypto YouTube trader or even Rumble, channel, or any other place where they have crypto trading videos and live streams. We're not there just to give you a hoopla of hopium and make you hear the echo chamber that you're looking for. We're there to actually teach you for free how to trade with our tools. Like, novel concept, right? And yeah, the volatility starter pack is just a sort of